Welcome to the Thursday, June 13th, 2019 Helm Developer Weekly Call, or whatever name it is that I'm getting screwed up. The format, as always, if you're new, is we go through any announcements we have, then the core maintainers give a stand-up on what's going on, and then we can get into discussion and assignments for the week. And so with that, I will drop the link in here to the meeting minutes for anybody who wants to follow along at home or help Mr. Fisher take notes, because it looks like you signed up for that last week. And so to kick it off, we have no announcements listed, but did anybody have any announcements that they wanted to share?
Fisher, you want to give an update on Helm Summit?
Sure. So the co-chair committee this week met up. There honestly isn't too much to report on our end. It was just mostly figuring out that the program committee deadline for reviews is this Saturday, I believe, at midnight. So once that's done, the co-chair committee will be taking a look at the actual schedule, and then we'll be going and talking about those, assembling the schedule essentially for Helm Summit. Other than that, no other news to report on that end that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other announcements? Well, Mr. Fisher, since you were already talking, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. I see someone's taking over notes for the moment. Actually, it's Michelle. So thank you so much for doing that. So yesterday, or rather this last week, I have been taking a look at one of the Helm 3 refactors, which is it's the OCI registry integration. So I'm taking a closer look at the getter package, which basically handles the URL resolution on requirements files, on Helm install, and everything else. So we can actually fetch Helm charts from wherever it needs to be, from a chart repository API, from a local file, and all of that. So I've been taking a good hard look at the download manager and the getter packages, and trying to refactor that to make it a lot cleaner of a package, so we can actually implement an OCI registry getter, so we can fetch things from an OCI registry. So that has been on my plate for the past week. This week, it'll be continuing on that, going through Helm 3 PRs and whatnot. So yeah, just development. Let's pass it off to, I see Butcher's on the next list on the notes.
You just do that Matt ping-pongy thing where we go from Matt to Matt to Matt. Yeah. Most of my work this week has been on just keeping tabs on a few things on the Helm issue queue. As I haven't committed anything or done anything other than maybe reviewed a PR or two. That's it for me. I'll pass it over to Adam.
Yeah, so this past week, sorry I've missed a couple stand-ups. Just been dealing with some health stuff still. Been out sick off and on for a little bit, so thank you for your patience with anything that is outstanding. This past week, I've been working on the XGG feature, which is bleeding into the removal of Helm Home as well. My PR is kind of turning into the PR that's fixing all things PR. So I got to look into splitting that up again, and to try to get some stuff merged in. So I'll be continuing on that this week. So let's see, go Martin.
Hi. So I missed last week's stand-up as well. So what I've been looking at is I updated the checklist document after going through a cut and a release there a few weeks ago. So yeah, just any bits and pieces that someone new would be starting would not know to update and so forth. I'm also doing some testing around the V3 migration and having it running into one cluster, 2 releases. So what I found in that at the moment is that there seems to be an issue. So I pinged it off to Adam, and we'll maybe have a look at it, where it seems like the release object coming from the state, V3 isn't able to load it. So I couldn't see any changes that have happened in between that. So I'm not really sure what the reason behind that is. But it's having a problem with the base64 encoded data. And I also updated the migration doc as well to see how far I go. Obviously, that'll change around again as well with Helm and it and different things that might change as we go along. But I suppose it keeps us on track as well, what way things are going to go for users and so forth. Other things that I was looking at, I was doing some PR reviews, some issue triaging, and I was just doing some proposal reviews as well. So yeah, that's it for me. So I'll hand off to Michelle.
Hey, yeah, I've been working on the test feature for a while now, and let's see. Currently, I've just been refactoring. So if you're touching the sort manifests function, like that's something I'm working on right now, refactoring. So just let me know. Other than that, I'm finishing up implementing the new annotations for the test feature, and I've decoupled the test abstraction from its tight coupling with the hook system. So getting really close for people who want to work on tests. As soon as that's done, y'all can pick up additional test features if you're interested in working on that feature. Let's see. Who else is going? Who else wants to go? Matt Farina?
Before I go, since I'm sharing, we got Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
Taylor, you on the line?
Yes, I am. Sorry I missed last week. Had some on-call stuff at work. But this week I've been reviewing CFPs for the Helm Summit, and I was working with Scott Rigby on reviewing some refactor of the coalesce values logic, which is a fun part of our code. But there were some community members who did some really good work on that and did a really nice refactor, so that was pretty helpful. So that's all merged. I'm not sure what I'll be doing this next week, but I do know I'm going to be transitioning on to doing Helm pretty much full time for the next few months so we can get Helm 3 out. So I'll be doing that and be picking up whatever we need to in Helm 3. That I think is all for me.
All right. We have Josh over in Chart Museum. Did you have anything you wanted to jump in with?
I don't have much this week. I was out last week. I am next week going on hitting the road and visiting Bridget Crumhout in Minnesota and giving a talk out there, and then some in Wisconsin. So I've been preparing for that. I also want to put together, hopefully before the end of the week, outstanding things with the registry so we can start offloading it to the community. That's it. I don't know who. Scott?
Hey, sure. Not a lot. Honestly, just what Taylor said this week.
Okay. Then we have Jacob on. For those of you who don't know, he's a charts maintainer. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add in stand-ups today?
Hey, no, I just kind of wanted to hear, I'm just happy to hear an update from Michelle on testing. That's something I'd like to help with a little bit when it's ready.
Fantastic. All right, then did we miss anybody who's a core anywhere? All right, we got a lot of people here today. And then for myself, my stand-up is I've been working a little bit more on detection, moving that into Helm 3 for detecting objects, not just API groups. There's a PR open for Helm 3 stuff. In addition to that, I've been just doing some reviewing of pull requests, things like that. The next thing I'll probably be working on is the Helm Hub, trying to make that search accessible through Helm v3, since we are dropping the stable repo, still having something that we can search. and that kind of capacity will probably come next, and we're looking at some Helm Hub changes in order to make that happen. Then the next thing we have is just, is there anybody in the community who hasn't talked who would like to give a stand up? That's one of the other things we do is we open it up to everyone. Once, twice, 3 times, crickets, awesome. All right, discussion topic. We've got several discussion topics and about 15 minutes, so we'll see what we can get through. The first one was proposed by Mr. Fisher to drop the title Issue Sherpa. Matt, would you like to go into that?
Yeah, I can quickly time box this. We could probably bring this to the mailing list as well afterwards to put a vote to it. But essentially, the last couple of weeks, we've been asking for people who want to be the issue Sherpa. And it's been kind of awkward to ask people to take the week to go and do issue triaging. However, everyone who is on this call has been reviewing issues and has been triaging and everything else. So I'm wondering if the title is less of a formality and more like a shared responsibility between all of us. And so I'm just wondering if it doesn't make sense to have a dedicated person as an issue Sherpa, if we're all pitching in together on the issue queue.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on this. I think that makes a lot of sense, Fisher. I think the only thing that I want to make sure we're taking into account is like kind of a dedicated person for security issues. So like as long as we have that group of people who is on call and making sure that they're kind of taking a look at the security mailing list and scanning any issues for security related concerns, then I would be good with removing the issue Sherpa title.
So, just to jump in real quick, we actually have a security policy with people who are on the hook for it. I'll drop the link in here.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, and it has the names next to all the people who said, we're there, we're listening, we're on that list. I'm not sure how it relates to any of the issues who come in, but you'll see that several of the people who have been chipping in are also on this list. We probably need to drop a security MD file pointing here into all the repos now that GitHub does something about it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems like so the disconnect here as well is that this, as far as I understand, the security mailing list and everything else is handled by the org maintainers, less so about the core maintainers. So organizationally speaking, the two roles and responsibilities are a little bit separate. So as long as we have on the organization side some, or at least the roles of people who are taking a look at the security list, then that seems to be addressed, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I just want to make sure at least one person is looking at the issues as well. But again, if that's a shared responsibility and we have that understanding, then that's okay too. So now that we have that cleared up, we can move on. I'm good.
Okay, yeah, maybe I can bring this to the actual mailing list as an action item afterwards. Then either we can vote on that, or if we need to, or we can just go with lazy consensus.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Brina.
All right, the next item we have up here is the V2 release object from state not loading in V3. Martin, this is you.
Yeah, so what I just mentioned earlier, from looking at the code, I'd be under the impression that the release object should load into V3, but it's having a problem with the initial byte of the basic 64 encoded data. So I don't know, I suppose it's something, I suppose how important is it? Maybe we'll change as well the way we go, but yeah, if anyone has any ideas where maybe to direct me towards it, maybe it's the encoding coming into it, I'm not sure. So yeah.
So we know that there's going to be several breaking changes to the release object in terms of Helm 3. So one of the biggest ones, of course, is with the removal of Tiller. The release has now been moved to another namespace. But the actual release object I know has had some changes to its actual release metadata, and we are not planning on bringing that over as something like the compatibility between Helm 2 and Helm 3 on the release object is not something that was on the table for backwards compatibility. What we were planning on doing is when we were at Helm 2 and going to Helm 3, we were planning on doing a migration document, which either like a script for doing a full migration of your release objects. But then again, that's an evaluation of how we can do that. Because one of the things that we wanted to address was the three-way server-side apply, where the live state, your current state, and what you're planning on to install, the apply logic is completely different compared to how it's done in Helm 2. So how we store that metadata between a Helm install or Helm upgrade in Helm 2 versus how we did that in Helm 3 is the metadata that we require for that is a completely different patch set from what I understand. So
let's ask this. What is being changed about the release object? Because that actually breaks backwards compatibility with all of the existing charts, right? And it's about the object being available, right? The release object?
Yeah, it's the release object inside in the state.
So when you're doing a chart, you've got .release and you're able to get to stuff, right?
It's not about the rendering engine, more so about the storage layer, as I understand. Right, Martin?
Yeah, so sorry, go on.
It's about the release object and how it's encoded and stored, and then decoded back into memory. So what we do is we have this struct that we just encode into JSON and stuff into the data of a secret. So that data structure has changed a little bit because what we were doing was actually streaming or encoding the gRPC protobuf, which we're not using gRPC anymore. So what we're doing is encoding it into JSON. And because we're doing that, the data types are different. Protobufs has a lot of restrictions as far as data types and data structures, which we were able to simplify quite a bit because we weren't forced into those constructs. So because we don't have the proto definitions anymore, encoding back into the release object, it is a little different. Things like enums are strings now instead of just numbers. That way, when you render them, it's actually human readable now. And there's been a few little changes like that. So if we want to be able to read old releases into Helm 3, we're going to need some way to convert them or have a migration story, which is, I think, the issue that Martin's bringing up is since you can't read in the release object from storage, what do we want that migration story to be?
If I remember right, but if I remember right, and it may have been Josh, if you're still on the call, suggested doing an upgrade plugin of some kind that could upgrade those things and doing it as a plugin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is that right? Is my memory serving me right, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, it would basically keep everything in place, create the new stuff, and you would be called 2 to 3 just for coolness.
Yeah, so what you'd end up doing is, I suppose, decoding and mapping and then re-encoding and sending in pretty much. So yeah, kind of what I was looking at was there an easy approach where you could just take the config map directly over to a secret and bring it in? Except obviously if the structure has changed, then that's the issue.
Jacob, asked a question in chat, which was, could we add a version field and handle both? And if we are to handle both, then that means Helm 3 has to have gRPC, the exact same version that Helm 2 has compatible, so it can basically unparse that release object metadata that was in there and then handle that data. It also has to handle the tiller namespace thing, right? Because before, releases were stored in the global namespace that tiller was installed in, not necessarily the namespace that the objects are being installed in. So the behavior of how the release objects are being stored in Helm 2 versus Helm 3 is a very big departure between the two. That makes it very difficult from a code sanity standpoint to be able to say, well, we can store, or we can maintain compatibility between Helm 2 and Helm 3 by just reading that data in and just spit out a new Helm 3 release object metadata. I think making that promise is going to be a lot harder going forward, especially because of the removal of gRPC and the changes to the storage layer, essentially. So I don't think that's an easy thing to tackle.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to keep that as a goal, because with some of the apply stuff that's changing, the release, we might store different information with the release object. And to have something built in, I could see that if we want to support reading and writing in a backwards compatible way. But
Can I make
I
a
don't think we
suggestion?
would want to do that. I think we would want to have it be a one-off thing to convert rather than have it built in. But yeah, go ahead, Matt.
My suggestion would be that somebody come up with a proposal. Now that there's been a whole bunch of talk around some of the difficulties, if somebody wants this, I would ask that they come up with a proposal on how the functionality could work, whether it's in core or in a plugin or whatever, that kind of tries to deal with some of these problems. Because, you know, right now we've got an idea of doing a plugin that's a one-time migration, or maybe it continually migrates from the old to the new. But it's not a two-way sync, and it's not a compatibility. If somebody wants something else, I'd love it if they dug into the complexities of it and see if they could find a workable solution.
I might continue on with that then, because I've done some work on it, and yeah, I'll keep looking at it. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not easy. So good luck.
No, it's yeah, it's a hornet's nest. So I shouldn't have clicked it really.
So since we're running short on time here, I want to jump to assignments real quick. Do we have somebody who's interested in moderator for next time?
I can do it. I haven't done it in a while. This is Scott.
Scott, okay. And notes. Anyone interested in notes for next week?
I can do notes.
Sweet. And I'm going to leave issue Sherpa blank and see where the conversation goes. I know, right? All right, let's jump back. Did we have anything else on the release object that Martin brought up? Are we good there? All right, then we'll move on to the next one, which I had, which was CRDs, right? So we're doing a major change, and people love their CRDs, and they're so hard to deal with. So there's an issue that I've linked to here that's an idea from Adnan. I don't take credit for this. I'm just documenting what he and I talked about. He hadn't gotten around to it. I threw something up on the mailing list, but folks want us to kind of handle CRDs better. There's a good opportunity here if we can handle dependencies, because there's no way to handle dependencies with CRDs now. Stuff's not nice. And there's a big call for us to try to make this better. And I'm not sure what the solutions are for the different situations, but there's a huge call from the community wants it. People at companies have asked about it, especially those doing CRD-based things. And so this is kind of called, if you've got ideas, or maybe you have an idea around one of the problems you were in, please, if you could just throw up your 2 cents on it, it would be appreciated. That's all I wanted to call out to. I don't want to have a long CRD conversation here. Let's get it somewhere in writing publicly off this list and give people time to think about it. But please, even if you've got 5 minutes, jump in and see whether you've got any ideas. That's it. So the next one was unsetting values keys on Helm 3, and there's a link to issue 5834.
That's me.
Okay. You got the floor.
So anyway, this is just a proposal I had after reviewing some of the PRs these past couple of weeks and talking with Adam and Scott. Basically, right now we have this support where if you set a key to null, it will delete the key entirely from the final computed map, which is like when I talked to Adam, is a little bit of an abuse of null and how that spec works, and it just feels very gross as we were working on it. So the proposal there was to deprecate or remove. That's still up for debate, and I'm just kind of curious what people thought. Using null to set it and change it to a -- unset flag that operates on the final computed values map. So once everything's computed and merged together, it says, okay, now unset this thing. And so there's a debate on whether or not we need that, if that's something we want to do, and then also with backward compatibility with people who are using null to do that, to set those things. As far as we've been able to tell looking around at charts, like none of the charts do this. It's generally users who are pulling in like dependency charts and want to override something. And so we can either do two, like have both, support both with a deprecation warning that will remove it by like Helm 3.4 or something, or we can just remove it entirely. So anyway, I was just curious what people thought, and if there's anyone in the community who was like, wait, no, stop, or whatever might be the case.
How would you unset it in a values YAML file?
Right now, you said it was just setting it to null.
But in this new setup, in this new world where you're not using unset, how would you do it?
You're using -- unset, and it uses the exact same syntax as set.
I think the answer is,
but that's for a flag. I'm asking in a values.yaml file. Like I create my own values YAML file and I'm not passing it in at the CLI. How would I unset it in a declared configuration file?
You don't.
that's the proposal is to remove, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the proposal is to remove that functionality because accepting null as a signifier that a key should be removed was just a convention. And the one thing that it does not allow is for you to have null as an actual value. That hasn't, as far as I know, caused any problems, but I agree it is a little bit, it's opinionated.
No, I understand it's opinionated. But what this does is it removes the ability to use a config file to say remove this thing, and that's the thing that I see as a problem, because now I know when I'm doing, if I'm doing this chart versus that chart, oh, I want to unset this. Here I've got to use unset flags at the command line, and in addition to a file, and other times I can just use a file, and I can't just have it recorded in a file at all times. That's the issue that I have. I'll go ahead and document it on there. Adam, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify like what the actual issue of this is. So when you set a value, say like in a values file to nil, then that gets persisted when you're merging through. So you have a history of, I want to nil this out, as opposed to if a key is removed, like today, if it's set to nil, we just remove the key. So then when it goes to the next step of merging, it says, hey, there's no key here. So let's go ahead and merge in this next value. There's no persistent in memory that, oh, I want to actually nil this out. So we have to actually persist that nil. So when it gets to the next stage of the merge, say you're merging values for a subchart, then you have that explicit null being set.
I understand. I understand the issue there, and you explicitly set that null versus removing it. And let me think about it a little bit more. I just don't like having an option that is only at the command line and it's not in config, but I haven't really thought through the full issues of it.
Yeah, because what we're doing is we're breaking expected behavior to be able to unset keys with merging. We're actually throwing in our own merge strategy, which doesn't merge stuff correctly. But it introduces this feature which allows you to unset keys.
And I'm wondering if it makes a difference between having a nil and having it being unset, what that is practically speaking from creating a chart standpoint and how you would use things. And that's really my curiosity. Does it matter?
It does in a few cases. It does. The simplest example is when the one that's been used the most, just because it was the one that first arose for me, was and others, is the probes. If you want the probes to be configurable in a chart, which is pretty common, it's becoming increasingly common because people want to use different images, and sometimes they need a different kind of probe. Say you want to use move an HTTP GET to an exec. Kubernetes freaks out if you pass 2 handlers in, even if the key is empty. It just won't do it. So you have to kill the key.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Example. Just an example.
No.
I just wanted to mention one thing, and you can kill my my discussion topic off the list. I'll add it for another week. But just as food for thought, could potentially, if you wanted to do this in code as opposed to the command line, could a Lua function potentially be the answer to your earlier question? You know, like post override values. Just throwing it out there. I know we don't want that to be the answer for everyone, but this,
How about we follow up on the issue?
Okay.
At this point, because we are already way over, and we had.
Oh, right. Sorry.
We had multiple things. Josh, is there something you wanted to talk about now, or is it something that can wait till next week?
I will push to next week.
Okay, let's get it moved now so we don't forget about it.
Cool.
But yeah, no, thanks for being willing to push it to next week. We're long-winded today. So in that case, we're 4 minutes over, and thanks everyone for sticking around so long. Have a wonderful week. Oh, and Michelle, happy birthday.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, folks.